Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of FSi DFS Fantasy Baseball Picks. I'm your host, Mike Brewer 31. If you watched the video on Friday, I talked about the DK achievements, home runs. I was able once. It was really ironic because the last team to hit a home run was Tampa Bay. So I got it on Sunday afternoon because the KC Tampa Bay or who was it? Yeah, KC Tampa Bay game was rained out on Friday. On Saturday, the one that was on the DK slate, there were no home runs. The one that was off the DK slate, the makeup game for Friday, did have home runs. But then it was finally Sunday, and it was down to Sunday. I had Cincinnati because they got shut out for two games, and there were Kansas City and Tampa Bay. There were three teams left, and Cincinnati hit a home run. Their game was a little bit earlier. Kansas City hit like two home runs, and then finally Paredes out of everybody is the one that finally sealed it for me. So it cost me actually less than $5 to stack all the teams in the dimes, and I actually made $11 in profit off of all the lineups I had. So pretty cool. 2,500 crowns more now. So just some cool little mini games to play on DK. So always check out those achievements. They're kind of fun to do. So got a massive 14 game slate here. Everybody's playing except for Milwaukee and Philadelphia. So let's just dive right into it. No real slam dunks at pitchers. Lots of great ways to go. So let's talk it out. So the first game we have in Baltimore, we have the Dodgers in Baltimore, Michael Grove and Tyler Wells. Grove has really struggled recently. Doesn't go deep into games, so not interested there. In Baltimore, put up some runs last night until the Dodgers came back, and Chris Taylor, was on the IL recently, came up, and he was just swinging for the fences, and he got a hold of one with bases loaded, and actually pretty much put him ahead for good there. But it was a pretty decent game to watch. Ended Baltimore streak with Dodgers on a streak. So these are two really decent teams. So it's been a decent baseball game. Wells on the other side is probably their ace here. And, he's a good pitcher. But again, it's against the Dodgers. So I think he's more of a GPP play. If you look at, but he's pretty good against right-handed hitting. So Dodgers probably throw some of the lefties in them, but the lefties, the bottom of the order aren't as good. Like Hayward's been okay, and you have like Muncy and Freeman in there also. So, so bat wise, I think the Dodgers are in the GPP range. And Baltimore, I think they almost have a 5 total. So I think they got to be probably one of the top stacks on my third favorite stack, especially with Grove struggling. And the Dodgers bullpen has been in the lower 10. Like they've really kind of struggled this year. So I think I like that also. I think Baltimore comes back, and then I think you have an exciting rubber game of the series on Wednesday. So next game, Cleveland, who put up 11 on Pittsburgh yesterday against at Pittsburgh. Logan Allen, he's okay. I think he goes in the GPP here. Pittsburgh brought up a lot of these guys from AAA, but they're just to get them some runs second half of the season here. But it's not like when Cincinnati called up all these guys. So I think they're going to throw probably an all right-handed lineup at him. So I think he's got some potential, but I don't like him as much as some other guys in the 7K range. Keller on the other side has had a really good season. Cleveland doesn't strike out much, but other than yesterday, they really don't have a ton of power. So I think he's definitely in play here. If you want to pay up for the pitcher, he'd be my third favorite in the 10 and 9K range. Bat wise, Cleveland be leveraged because I think Keller will have some ownership, and Pittsburgh, I think is probably in the 150 max. They're probably like my least favorite team here, just because you don't know a lot about these new guys, but they're cheap. So you've got a 2K catcher and Andy Rodriguez who isn't supposed to be bad, and a 2K shortstop here and Lover Peguero. So, and McCutcheon's back. So there's some different ways to go here. If you want to go, even Connor Joe leading off potentially probably here at 2.6 isn't bad. So there's some cheap fill-ins, especially if you're trying to get like Atlanta or some higher price pitchers and some higher price bats in, then that could help you make it work and be a little bit different than some of the other cheaper plays that are out there. Next, we have San Diego at the Blue Jays. We have Musgrove and Manoah. Musgrove has been pitching really well recently. Tough matchup against the Blue Jays, so I put him just below Keller here on the list of guys, but not as bad as a matchup as Eovaldi has. Manoah went out. He got sent down. He pitched against some rookies and some high school kids. Came back and dominated Detroit, but that's not hard to do usually. So now he gets a decent matchup. Looks like Tatis was banged up. Looks like he should be back in, but he's been good against righties, and San Diego's not too left-handed heavy here. I mean, you have Odor and Grissom at the bottom of the lineup, and Cronenworth, who's been struggling this year, hasn't been what he was last year, and then you have Soto. So probably gives up a couple of home runs, but in the cheap range, there's not that many guys that I like. So I think that he's in play here if you're trying to get up to like some of the Atlanta bats or some of the other more expensive bats. So, we'll keep them in the player pool for the cheap. And like I said, Musgrove. Bat wise, I think both of these teams just go near 20 entry max. I don't think they're like top GPP plays, but I think they're definitely in play. And I think, definitely it merits taking a San Diego stack against Manoah because we've seen him absolutely get blown up and have 5 or 6 runs put up against him. Next, we have San Francisco and Cincinnati, Great American Small Park, wind blowing out 10 miles per hour. There is a threat of rain here, but it's only in the 30% range, and it then tapers off. So a delay is possible, but it looks like it's going to clear up, and this game should be perfectly fine. Disco Fani coming off the IL, not interested in. He's had some okay spots, but not against this Reds offense here. They've got a lot of potential, especially with the wind blowing out here, 83 degrees. And Luke Weaver on the other side. I mean, he's a prospect with a lot of potential, but we just haven't seen it. So he gets on the fade list until he can show any consistency whatsoever. San Francisco bats they make my favorite cheap stack and fill-ins. They're not bad. They're all in the 3 and 4K range here. Really, really nice. And it's because they're such a pinch hit risk. But here's the beauty of it. The Reds only have one left-handed pitcher in their bullpen. They used them last night. So it doesn't mean they won't use them again, but I think we were kind of mitigating the pinch hit risk here. So I think you can safely play the starting lineup and be perfectly fine and not worry about them rotating out. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I think they're going to throw almost an all lefty lineup out here, except for JD Davis. But JD Davis is a reverse splits hitter. We always said that he hits righties better than lefties. So I think, this will be if you want more safety than Conforto and Yastrzemski usually don't get hit for like Peterson and Wade sometimes and some of the other guys in this lineup. On the other side, you have the Reds. I think definitely our top GPP stack here. You're going to have to make some choices because you have De La Cruz, who is like super expensive at 6'5", or you have Christian Encarnacion Strand, who just got called up too. He also plays third base. He's at 2K. He's another hot prospect that they're adding here. So, we'll just have to see. Reds make a good stack here. Also, there might be a decent game stack for you. So lots of potential offense in this game, not playing the pitchers. Next up, a little bit more rain threat in New York City, but it's about 50% chance up into the first pitch, and then it drops into like the 20s. So it'll probably be maybe a late start, if anything. It doesn't look like anything's going to pop up and really disrupt the game. We have Lucas Giolito and Carlos Carrasco. Giolito, I think, would be my second favorite pitch in the high range. Mets don't strike out much, but they have a little bit. This season, Giolito has gotten better. So, and it's a pitcher's ballpark. I know the wind's blown out slightly at 9 miles per hour, but I don't think that really is going to affect things too much at Citi Field. So I really like Giolito here, really solid on him. And Carrasco on the other side has been looking better recently. The White Sox have struggled also. So I think Carrasco's in play in the cheap range, definitely. Bat wise, I think if you don't trust Carrasco, I think the White Sox are definitely a team that you can use as cheap if you want to get off of the San Francisco chalk. I think San Francisco has a ton of upside, but if they're super popular and you want a little bit more leverage on the field, then the White Sox work. And then the Mets on the other side, I'd only play them in like 20 entry max, almost a leverage play against Giolito because I think he'll definitely have some ownership. Arizona Diamondbacks and the Atlanta Braves here. 94 degrees, wind blowing out slightly to left field, 8 miles per hour. Zach Davies against Bryce Elder. Zach Davies is an absolute no. Bryce Elder was doing solid, has had some bumps recently against this Arizona offense, but they've cooled a little bit recently, and he's been okay against righties. So just kind of the lefties that would concern me, and the switch hitters. So I think Elder's in play. I think probably he's in the maybe in the top 10 for pitchers, but closer to like 10 than 1, definitely. I mean, it's Arizona, and they still so Arizona. It goes in the 20 entry max. I mean, maybe you could switch out Colorado and put them in the top GPP and put Colorado over in the 20 entry max because even though they're in Coors, they've struggled. But I really think Atlanta's one of the top. They have a 6.2 total if you're fading Coors, and that's where you want to go. They're hard to get in, but we've talked about the cheap pitching. We've talked about the Pittsburgh bats and there's lots of other cheap bats that you can fill in to try to get 4, even 5. I mean, you might have to play like an Arcia Rosario if he's not injured, or Osuna to make it work. One of the 3K guys. It's hard to stack all the guys up top, but it is definitely doable. Next up, we have Miami at St. Louis. This game potentially might not play. 50% chance of rain up the first pitch, and then it goes into the 60s. So I'll just have to see there. Eduardo Cabrera coming off of the IL. Don't know how deep he's going to go. 9.7, not paying that much, even though the St. Louis has struggled at times. And then Jordan Montgomery has been solid recently, but has had his times in with Soler and De La Cruz and some of these Marlin hitters with just some decent power here that just, I think he's okay, but I think he's more of a GPP than one of my favorite in the higher medium range. So he's not in my top 10 here, especially with the weather. Bat wise, like I said, Miami, like Soler, if you want to take like a right-handed stack here, if this game's going to play, definitely like some of the top bats here to I don't see a raise in there. I don't know if he got injured or anything, so that's kind of strange. But if he's in the lineup, definitely like him. So Reza, De La Cruz, Soler, even Cooper. Figure out who else you want if you want to do like a wraparound cheap stack. So whatever works for you there. And then St. Louis, and Donovan probably lead off. Newt Barr will probably move up in the lineup. Tyler O'Neill might be back, so we'll have to see if Jordan Walker still gets to play. Hopefully he does. I think he's a nice, really good young prospect there. So next up, we have Washington Nationals and Chicago Cubs. Winds blowing in here 9 miles per hour, so that does help pitching. It might not be Corbin. We've also seen Williams coming back off of either bereavement or paternity or one of those ones. So whether it's Williams or Corbin, it doesn't matter. Both of them are going to be fade. It just matters which side of the Cubs bats you take. And they have a 5.21 total, even with the wind blowing in against Washington. So Washington bats, I would say, are probably the least in the cheap. I mean, Tyon has struggled, but looks like he's starting to put it together. And, they signed him and they thought a lot of him. They gave him a lot of money. And now I think he's finally figuring it out. So we'll see if that continues. So I think in the cheap range at 6.8, I think over Carrasco, Manoah, and Lynch, I think he's your safest option as an SP2 if you want to play down for your SP2 against this Washington team. I know Washington put up some runs yesterday, and some of the guys like Abrams has been really good since he moved to the top. Lane Thomas is a superstar in the making on a really bad team. Candelario has hit some home runs in consecutive games. Meneses is starting to come back. Dominic Smith used to be able to hit righties. Ruiz is the catcher. He had a home run last night, so he's like hits in the middle of the order there. So you've got some potential here on Washington, definitely for some cheap prices. And I think I'll definitely be playing some of them. I stacked them last night and it worked out well with a more expensive stack, and like I said, they scored 6 runs. I got the home runs right, so that really helped. Cubs on the other side, they have a 5.21 total, so definitely it all depends on who is pitching. Obviously take the righties against Corbin, but Cody Bellinger has been pretty hot recently, so lefty on lefty, I'm still fine leaving him in there. And if it is the the righty, then still a lot of these right-handed guys are probably decent. Happ had a home run last night, I believe. He's a split hitter. I just maybe wouldn't play like Suzuki. I'd try to take more of the right-handed guys or left-handed guys, but just have to see what the lineup is there and who that picture actually is. Next up, we have Tampa Bay and Texas. Taj Bradley and Nathan Eovaldi. Bradley has some huge upside. He's a good pitcher, but it's a horrible matchup against so he goes over into I still come from the medium range. Like, it's just his K rate is outstanding, and even though Texas has been elite, there are some strikeouts at the bottom of the lineup. So I think you definitely keep him in play here. I think he'll have low ownership, and he's one of the ones that if he does have a good night and, and the chalk fails and everything, could win you a GPP. Valdi on the other side, 10-3, most expensive pitcher on the slate. He has shown a little bit of aggression recently. He's up against the Tampa Bay team that is usually really good. So I think this whole thing screams GPP and leverage, and it just, if you sprinkle them into different lineups, and if they do go off and have super low ownership, what they should in their matchup, then you're off to the races. Same thing with the bats. I think they're both GPP lineups against decent pitching and decent bullpens. Speaking of not decent, then we go to the complete opposite here, where we go to the Detroit and the Royals. So I mean, yesterday, like, Detroit was held at bay by the Kansas City pitcher. So now we have Skubal and Lynch. Skubal, like, it's surprising to see him starting because they've been babying him. Like, they just want him to get out and see like some major league pitching, because he's like next year. The Detroit has nothing really to play for this year. So this is probably another one of those young arms like Manning and that they have in this organization that they're just trying to groom just to get ready, just as the young bats come together. And hopefully it's like a Baltimore thing, because Baltimore, all their pitchers are, besides like I think Gibson, are like 27, 28 years old. They just came up like within the last couple of years. They're starting to put it together, and hopefully Detroit feels, and the bats too, like Detroit feels like they're the next generation of Baltimore and put together, which, it's been a while since Detroit like has been formidable, and I just hope it all comes together and it works out for them. So they had some bumps in the roads this year with like injuries to Carpenter and Green and things like that. So let's hope they put it all together and everything works out. But Skubal, I don't think you can really play him here because I don't know how deep he's going to go, even though it does look like he's going to start. So he's a GPP for me. I have him at the no interest, but if there was a 6 spot in GPP, probably move over into that category. Lynch on the other side, I think he's a pitch contact guy. He's not going to get many strikeouts. Maybe with Detroit being not having a ton of plate discipline, it might work out for you. But at 6'3", I mean, if you need a dart, then I think it's there. At bat wise, Detroit, I think at 150 max. It's a lefty here. So Ibanez has had some, we've probably forgot about him because it's been a while since we've actually recommended playing Detroit just because of their matchups and everything. But Ibanez has shown power against lefties, and Haas has shown power against lefties, and Jake Rogers has shown power against lefties. So and this is a pitch to contact guy. So a Detroit stack, even though I'm in 150 max, is not out of the question. Again, if you want to use them over San Francisco chalk or over some of the other cheaper ones, and maybe Detroit should take Miami's spot just because of the rain. I do like Miami's upside against Carrasco there. Is they playing against Montgomery there with all the right-handed power bats. But if that game's going to rain out, then Detroit's definitely in play here to fill in. In Kansas City, I think is goes in the 150 max. Like, Skubal's a decent pitcher. The bullpen behind him, not so much, but like Kansas City just threw out like a vomit lineup. It was just, again, I think they're doing like Pittsburgh. They're just calling up some like Smead Taylor, and Drew Walters has shown some power here, but Nicky Prado, Matt Duffy, Darion Blanco, like, they're not your household names. I know they've had some injuries and stuff, but it seems like Kansas City's just kind of kicking the tires on some of these new guys at the, after the All-Star break here to see what they got. And I think they're in next year mode also. We have Coors Field. We have a little bit of rain, 30%, but it seems like it's been that all summer long. So I think they'll be fine and maybe play through it. We have Hunter Brown, who has been up and down, and like he's been brilliant, he's been bad. Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, kind of. It's a great matchup here, even in Colorado. The Rockies have struggled at Coors this year. They've hit injuries, they just haven't hit, they just haven't put it together. So wind is blown out slightly at 87 degrees, 9 miles per hour. So that does help hitting. So I think Brown is definitely an intriguing GPP play. Probably in, I don't know, he's at least in the top 20 tonight with pitchers. And Koch, whoever Colorado throws out there, I don't care, is not in play. Houston's been better. Put him as the top stack here. I know we kind of, you're apprehensive the first night at Coors to send these teams out there because they travel, they have to get used to the altitude and everything, but I think they'll be fine. So I think Kyle Tucker's definitely probably one of the best plays on the slate here. But righty lefty, I don't care. McCormick's been hot recently. He's actually hit some home runs. So whatever Houston stack works for me, try to get 4 to 5 in your lineup and whatever, and then you can get decent pitching. They're not super priced up. Like Tucker 6K, but the next highest one I think is Bregman at 4.9. It's not like you have multiple like 5 and 6K guys here. They're all in the lower 4K range, 3K range to fill out your lineup. Plus, especially if you go Maldonado as a cheap catcher here at 2.9, and Myers is cheap at 2.8. So it's definitely workable. Just have to see what the lineup is. Colorado on the other side, I think just into GPP because we have seen Brown give up some power, but is there power here? So I'd probably focus on like Jones and McMahon and maybe like Bryant, but there's really I can't really put together a formidable 5-person stack and feel good about it in cash here for Colorado. It's definitely a GPP play. Yankees and Angels, Herman and Sandoval. Herman, has had a couple of outings since his really brilliant game he's had. So, and the Angels are banged up, but they still have like Otani and Moniak and Moustakas, who's seemed to having a little bit of renaissance since getting traded here. Cabbage, another lefty, he hit a ball pretty hard last night. Looks like he could be a decent young player that has some potential also with, getting a chance with all these injuries. So I still like Herman. I think he's my second favorite in the medium range. Sandoval also, he's had solid spots at the season, but the Yankees have a lot of right-handers here and not as many strikeouts now that Donaldson got injured. So I still like him. He's probably number 10 out of the high-end medium guys because of the Yankees, and I think the Yankees definitely make a leverage stack because I think he'll get some ownership based on how bad the Yankees have been. But here, I mean, they're leading off Perez, which I don't understand it. Why? I mean, Volpe struggled, but I still think it seems like when they have him the leadoff spot against the lefty, then, which I'm not surprised that might end up happening. He seems to, but Perez is a really cheap leading off of 2.8, and then Stanton, he showed some power when he was out in Colorado over the weekend. Torres has been decent. Rizzo's always hit lefties well, and then Bader. So you definitely have a decent 5-person stack for Yankees and GPP, or if you like them as fill-ins, and you got a little bit more money because they're up in like the more of the 4K range than some of the San Francisco White Sox and Detroit people are more in the 3K range, then that works as a fill-in, or just take them as a full GPP stack. That's fine. Angels, the same thing. I think leverage against Sherman. I think he'll have some ownership also. So again, I said just stick to the lefties here. Otani, Moniak, Moustakas, Basis, and then Cabbage is probably where I'd go. If Renfroe ends up not batting ninth and somewhere in the middle there, then I think he's fine too. If one of those guys is missing. Boston and Oakland. Boston, so frustrating. Last night, Pivetta. Okay, great matchup. Let's play him. Wait, Pavetta's not starting. What's going on? Around lock, the lineup comes out and like, is it an opener? Is Pivetta pitching? They wouldn't say. Pivetta comes out, gets like 12 strikeouts, breaks the slate, has like 40 DK points or something. So tilting, but you couldn't take the risk. maybe in like a dollar lineup, but it's, again, like it's just not ideal to get a zero pitcher. So it does look like another opening situation with Murphy going as long reliever. Murphy's not Pavetta. I mean, he could do decent at 6'6". I think it's okay, but I'm really saying no interest here, even though Oakland has had some injuries and rolled out. They're starting to like decline too. Like they were horrible in the beginning of the season, historically bad. Then they started to put it together a little bit, and some of these young bats started to catch up and come on fire. Then Ruiz got injured, and a couple other guys got injured. Rickers started to get platooned after he cooled off. Notice started to figure it out a little bit. The G-Loff is decent also, but both of them are lefties, and Oakland is pretty righty heavy probably with their lineup here, but Oakland seems to do more damage when they are against a righty and can throw out their lefty lineup. So I think Oakland still, like, the bats are so cheap here. The most expensive bat, as I'm looking at the starting lineup, is 3-3 with Rooker. Everybody else is like in the 2K range. So they're definitely, if you're trying to get Atlanta in there or like pay up for all the Cincinnati guys or something like that, or trying to put Cincinnati and Atlanta together with their best hitters, then you definitely, Oakland is definitely a cheap fill in here. Pitcher wise, sorry, I skipped over that. Medina, I'm not interested in against Boston. And the opener, it's like, if you want to go with Murphy, maybe, but I just think it's too volatile situation on such a large slate. Boston bats, I think, would be my fourth favorite. I think they'll put up a lot. Like, love the lefties here. Duran, Yoshida, Devers has been banged up a little. I think he's got a calf issue, but he should be back in the lineup. I think he's just resting yesterday. Verdugo, Casas has. I don't know if he had a home run last night, but he had a home run in like the 3 previous games. Let me just look that up quick and see. As I'm looking this up, the final game of the season, of the slate, seems like it's a whole season when you have a 14-game slate. Minnesota and Seattle here. Ober and Wu, both these pitchers are in play. Wu is probably my favorite pitcher on the slate. He's just been phenomenal recently. Minnesota definitely has some strikeouts. So scoring, no, it doesn't look like anybody hit a home run last night. So okay, so the streak is over, but still Casas is definitely a good play fair there. But Ober has been solid, and the Mariners they've really underperformed, even at home. Like we said during the All-Star game, it's like the 5th or the 4th lowest home runs been hit in this park, and it just really seems to neutralize some of the power. So Ober and Wu, both of them are in play. Ober, I think, is the favorite pay up one. Wu, you can play both of them. I know you lose the win, but either one of them, either way, I think are some of the top pitchers. So let's look at the builds, and we'll get you on the way for your day for Tuesday here. So I am taking Wu. I'll let you decide who you want to pay up for your SP1. And I'm stacking Houston, so Abreu, Dubon, Tucker, and then San Francisco's going to be my fill in here. So JD Davis, whoever you want to take it, if you want to take Crawford, if you want to take Diaz, if he's not hurt for Houston, you might end up taking a one-off in shortstop. That's perfectly fine. But you Stremski, and then you can decide if you want a Houston outfielder there or another one of the San Francisco outfielders. Catcher Diaz is really good for Houston, or if you want to take one of the like Sabo or Bailey, there's a lot of decent, or even Maldonado would work here if you want to pay up for if Yanni or Diaz is not in the game. So there's so many ways to go there for cash. For for FanDuel, Giolito or Ober is where I'm going for my SP1. Diaz, Houston, Durbin, JG Davis, shortstop again, figure out who works for you. Might want to take a one-off there, even take like a cheap 2K guy just to get the San Francisco and Houston bats in and pay up for a nice pitcher. Tucker Conforto, and you figure out the rest there. GPP, give me Carrasco. Probably going to take like Tyon, Manoa, or Lynch and just go really cheap pitchers here because I want the Braves in Washington. So give me Olsen, Albies. It's Candelario, not Candelario. Must have fat fingered that one. uh, Abrams and Acuna, and then you can figure out what Braves you want there to finish off the stack. And I went all Braves in Washington. But again, like I said, if you want to pay up for pitchers, then Oakland's got some cheap bats there. Detroit's got some cheap bats. There's lots of cheap options to get the Brave stack in there and to get a decent pitcher to pair with Carrasco, or if you want to pay up a little bit more into the mid-range and dip your toes in there and get like a Sandoval, Bradley, Elder, somebody like that. Anybody to pitch. Like, I don't think you get into the top tier, even with playing with the cheap bats, but there's some different ways to get your Braves. And then with FanDuel, give me Woo as the pitcher, and he opens up so you can get a full Brave sack. So I'll let you decide if you want Olsen. You have to decide on Olsen or Lane Thomas. Like, you can't play both with Woo in this lineup unless like some super value comes out on Washington. Or again, if you want to go Detroit, then it's probably perfectly fine. Or some of the other cheap bats, or just mix and match your favorite cheap bats off of these cheaper teams. Definitely works out. Then you can probably get your 4 Braves in with Olsen, who's definitely in a great matchup here. But I'm going to leave it up to you if you want to play Thomas or Olsen in this build. So I got for you. I know there's a lot. Thanks for watching. Thanks for making it this far into the video. So if you have any questions, put them in the chat below. Hit me up at MegaRotor31 on Twitter. If these videos are helpful to you, please help us back by liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and sharing with your friends. And I've seen a lot of you reach out to me and show me that you've posted it on your Twitter feed or in your Discord or things like that. So I appreciate that, all the viewership, all the support we've gotten. Still continue to grow. We are at like 4,330 subs. So still pacing our way towards the goal of 5,000. This year, if we make it to 4,500, 5,000 next year, that's perfectly fine. We just are so glad that so many people continue to watch our videos and to support us. So hopefully our help is helping you also. So appreciate that. If you want more information on FSi DFS, you can go to the description of the video, and there you see the website and shows you how to sign up for us. So I'm MegaRotor31. I hope you have a great Tuesday. Good luck in your contest. Lots of option here. Pretty fun slate. Weather shouldn't mess it up too bad. So you know how to get a hold of me if you have questions, and I will see you next time.